Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and Matt Goddard. How are you, Matt?
I'm fantastic. Looking forward to a big weekend ahead, but we've got a number of days to catch up on, haven't we, Mal? How are you?
I'm really good. I realised I didn't say my good friend and co-host there, so it sounds like we've had a big falling out. We haven't had a falling out. I'm just very tired from travelling around the country. And yes, we are really late. We're really, really late. So sorry, listeners. Thank you so much for bearing with us. I have been trundling around the country and we tried to do this on Sunday, didn't we, first of all? Then like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we abandoned Thursday. Now it's Friday morning at 7:57. And we're going to try and cram as much as possible into the next 25 minutes or so.
And we're also going to keep this as the time and date for the next few weeks, aren't we?
We are. We're going to do it on Fridays going forward just for the next 6 weeks or so before we revert back to our usual Tuesday-ish slot. So again, thank you everybody for bearing with us, and hopefully, if this week is anything to go by, it's going to be even more jam-packed as we go through. So without further ado, let us get on to our property news. All right, so on our property news, first up, we wanted to talk about the housing market in general. Okay, and good news for early January is that the most homes for sale are available in 8 years. According to Zoopla, we've had the mortgage rate cut back at the back end of last year. Everything seems to be going pretty well, Matt. What's your take on this?
It's certainly a very, very strong start to the year, isn't it? And we see it in terms of the articles, but also Chris Watkin.
Singular.
He presents, but also being out and about. I've been fortunate over the last couple of weeks being with some agents rather than just cooped up in my den dealing with
like usual.
Exactly, and there's a lot of positivity out there. But you've been doing a lot more miles than me. How's the feedback been while you've been on the road?
Yeah, really good. So and countrywide as well. So I've been to sort of like South Wales all the way over to the mighty Ipswich, and South Coast up north. I was in Hull and York yesterday and Sheffield. Broadly, really good. Yeah, very positive. A lot of agents are really kind of getting stuck in. I think much of last year was all about the kind of budget sort of anticipation, and everyone sort of putting things on hold, expecting a big massive chunk of tax increases that were due to come in the budget on November 26th. So that kind of killed the latter 6 months of last year. So it seems to be been a big surge, certainly with properties coming onto the market, deals being done. Obviously, it's still early, so I think people are kind of still waiting for things to drop, and there's a bit of trepidation about actually is this going to convert into full completions and so on and so forth, having been burned last year. So I think there's a kind of bit of nervousness, as you would expect, almost PTSD of people expecting the government to do something crazy at some stage to kind of kibosh everything. So broadly speaking, really positive, and I think it sets a good tone for the year, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does indeed.
Good stuff. All right. Next up on our property news, we are talking about the share of market that online estate agents have. So our good friends at 20CI have produced another amazingly detailed report with some really great stats in. And the one that kind of stuck out for us as we were sort of building this over the last week and a half was that actually the online sector continues to shrink, doesn't it?
It does. I think it's interesting for us, or positive for us to include these sort of shifting dynamics, or at least keeping an eye on them, because it dovetails nicely with the online agency dropping away, but also the hybrid agency growing. And
self-employed.
If we just sit there, you touched on in the last comment about countrywide, and for a moment I thought you meant Connell's countrywide, but actually you meant length and breadth of the UK as you surge around. Actually seeing alongside that online agency dropping, although when we talk online agency, we're not talking about open rent, are we, where they continue to go from strength to strength. But the fact that hybrid agencies and EXP have now surpassed their 900 agent milestone. There's a picture of Adam kicking around on LinkedIn where he's pointing to the number as it surged forward, and I'm sure they'll quickly hit 1,000 as well. The way their referral works.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, they're kind of combined 20CI, the online and the self-employed sector. So yes, self-employed continues to hammer upwards, led by, as you say, Adam Day and EXP. And I'm coming across more kind of traditional agents, so agents with offices actually starting to join. So Benjamin Stevens in sort of Edgware area, they joined the EXP network earlier this year, so just a few weeks ago. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on there, and I think that it's going to continue to kind of almost throw shade at the onliners. Yopa is still kind of holding firm, and fair play to Verona and her team there. Again, I just think that they are very open about who they are, what they do, and I think that's great. Purple Bricks continues to kind of just sort of disappear, doesn't it? And that I think is probably testament to the damage that the brand has suffered over time, and some might say justifiably so. So yeah, no, it's been a really interesting open to the year in terms of how the sort of tectonic plates are shifting around different sectors of the marketplace. All right, next up, we wanted to just touch on some AI stuff, as is our want, and this is a story that was actually put out through the Negotiator, which says that more than half of agents are planning to adopt artificial intelligence, and Alto, who are a provider of CRM systems, as part of Zoopla, they say that is in order that agents avoid burnout. So again, as I go around the country on this tour, there are a lot of people joining because we're just doing about AI in general. So it's free, you can come and you can just kind of ask stupid questions as you like about AI. It just doesn't matter. This is so new. And yes, and a lot of it is actually dovetailed around how can we use this to kind of stop having to work through into the evenings, and I'm doing all the work, much of the work around going out on valuations and stuff like that, and then the admin afterwards and all that. And this is what kind of is basically here to do, is to kind of shoulder a lot of the administration stuff. What's your take on this, Matt? How are you finding out there?
Well, it's quite an emotive headline, isn't it, to sort of flag up burnout when there's sort of things like the Women in the State Agency conference, not a conference, coming up to sort of actually truly focus on that. And I know quite a lot of these are clickbait headlines, because normally what you'd say is actually if you're getting a shed load of work through, you look at bringing someone in and use a virtual assistant or someone to take on that responsibility, right? And I was only listening to this morning the sort of that cliff edge of AI, where taking the time to actually put the AI in place, you're sort of putting it off because you've got too much work on your plate to actually deal with it, which is why companies like yourself come along to support those needs. But it's certainly, I think the danger is that a lot of people try to do it themselves and implement the AI, and actually it causes more administration than not, or you get that reaction where the people who are trying to put it in place maybe cause problems that people then just shelve it and don't bother going through. And especially around things like anti-money laundering, where if you get it wrong, there's quite significant fines involved. You want to be dealing with a specialist company, and obviously there's a raft of those in our industry who will be using AI to do that. But I thought the headline, and I know the one for the emotive headlines is probably Whaley and Mincy's Kerfuffle podcast on a Sunday, but sort of throwing that in the mix is an interesting one.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So yeah, no, I do think that it's like with any software, and it's also like recruiting any person, right? Actually, oftentimes you look at it and go, the process is so hard, and if I get it wrong, it's so bad that actually people put it off and just kind of carry on kind of doing the soldiering on, basically. So yeah, no, I think that this is the technology is there. It's available. It's really, really good when deployed correctly, and it's relatively light touch, once it's kind of up and running. So yeah, no, I think there's lots to be gained from it. Obviously, I'd say that, but it is true. That's the reason why we do what we do, because it is hugely beneficial. But yes, it can really make a difference to a lot of agencies, and already is out there. So that is our AI. Sorry, that is our property news. We now need to move on to our AI and tech news. Right, there is just so much to go through. We've started basically when we first started talking about this on Sunday, or we were trying to get to it on Sunday. It was like we've got enough for a whole edition right now. Now we've got even more. So we're going to try and very quickly bounce around the most important themes of the week. I'd like to start with ChatGPT and its adverts. All right, so ChatGPT is now trialing adverts for free users of its service. All right, so there will be adverts scattered around your ChatGPT interface if you are not paying the minimum now. And they've sneaked out a new £8 Go package per month as well, which is slightly lower than the £20 plus package. So yeah, if you're on Go or you're on the free one, then you're going to start seeing ads around and about. I think this is. I really worry about this actually. I think ChatGPT has become kind of omnipresent by being really, really straightforward, really, really easy. Everybody knows exactly what you're getting, right? Which is that it will surface the right answer to the questions that you ask it. I worry that, and this is something we spend a lot of time thinking about around My Porter, right? So My Porter, which is our free to list property portal, the reason why it's free to list is because we don't want consumers worrying about any corruption in there. That basically the agent that pays us the most will get the top listing or anything like that. That's nowhere within our site, because we know that the second you start allowing the people with the biggest pockets to surface at top is when people start to distrust what's coming through. And trust is going to be the most important thing in the world of AI, bar nothing. So trust is everything. So yeah, I just think that the OpenAI is really opening itself up to the potential to be distrusted, and people to look at its answers and consider those to be in some way corrupt. What's your take on this, Matt?
My view is it was inevitable, and they have to start creating revenue, and the drums have been going for a fair few months now, haven't they? And I think the fact that it's going into those free subscriptions, they need to make some money somewhere, and if you don't want the ads, then you can pay the 20 quid a month to not get those. But so far, and obviously we'll wait and see, the placement is going to be below the sort of the context and that comes back from your queries and searches in the chatbot. So they'll be very distinguishable and separate and related to it. And I think that's where the adverts will be really interesting, is actually they'll be much more targeted at you. So like, for example, I was in Leeds last week and we're staying in Airbnb. And as we know, ads can be placed on your tellies and your Fire Sticks and that sort of thing now. And because we're in a new home in the middle of Leeds, we were getting loads of new homes plugged at us, whereas when we're staying in Camberwell where we live, we don't get any of that sort of thing. And it's
Yeah.
quite broad sweeping, but with this sort of context that ChatGPT is going to be feeding into those ads, that actually they'll be much more relevant to what you're doing, and actually probably not just as a consumer, but also as an advertiser, actually getting a better sort of engagement from them. And as long as they do deliver on that complete segregation from the results that the chatbot returns, I think that's where your sort of concern comes, right? Where actually, am I just getting told that, take an example of someone who's closed now, KFH, Camberwell's the best agency in Camberwell because they're paying. When those lines start to get merged, I think that's the problem. But at the moment, they're being very clear about it's only if you're not paying for a subscription. So if you don't want ads, pay for a subscription. And it's delineated from the search results. I also saw Google have come out and said, we're definitely not going to put them into Gemini
Yeah.
yet.
Well,
And that
yeah.
will inevitably come as well, right, to cover their sides. And I think going back to it, and your point you make about where it all comes together and merges and removes that trust, a bit like Google search now, that if you're not careful, sometimes you search for something. And I know somebody very close to me who went to New Zealand over Christmas, searched for the New Zealand visa and clicked the top link in Google, and ended up paying a fortune for the visa because it was actually a paid link rather than actually going to the true New Zealand authority and buying it for 14 quid. That journey with Google's already been blended, right? So as long as they are delineating those, I think it's okay. And I was surprised actually in terms of the volume of people who aren't paying for the 20 quid a month subscription, because even I guess even quite advanced technical people I come across who say, oh no, we can't use ChatGPT with our business data because it all gets used to train the model. It's like, well no, just turn the data sharing off. No,
Yeah.
because they're not paying. And yes, it is £20 a lot, and £20 a month, and that is a lot. It's a coffee a week, really, and the benefits you get from that. And now with not having ads, although I'm sure again that'll change in due course as well, where you get pushed up to the more expensive subscriptions, and the no ads will be part of that. To start with, I think it was inevitable.
Yeah, to your point about Google, I think that that's an interesting contrast. Obviously, they're trying to get some competitive advantage. They're kind of hot on the heels of ChatGPT right now with their Gemini large language model. But yes, what they said was very clearly that ads are okay in search, but they're not okay in large language models or in discovery. You know, because actually, because you can't see how it's calculated, and yes, you can argue that Google's algorithm is, you know, again, kind of complex black box kind of stuff. But there is some logic to it, and you can kind of understand what they're trying to do within. When you put in a search in ChatGPT and it comes back with an answer, you've got to really believe that that is the proper answer. I just think this kind of starts to sort of almost poison the well a little bit. So yeah, look, I think it's a risky move. Like you, I was surprised that there's 83% of people are on the free, so we'll be getting these ads. And yeah, you know, I think it could start to see a rush of people away from it, I think, because I think people will start to just kind of assume that actually there is some commerciality in all of the results that are shoved to the top, even if that's not the case. So yeah, again, watch the space. It is something that will develop over time. And like you say, yeah, probably inevitable given the fact that OpenAI needs to make so much money to try and pay off all of its debts and all of its repay its investment and so on. It's looking at float potentially this year, as are various others. So yeah, there's lots that they are still to try and make. And we'll see how that transpires over the rest of the year. But other news in OpenAI, and again, it feels like a bit of a bad week for OpenAI. So Elon Musk is back after them again. He wants 134 billion from OpenAI in a lawsuit that has been allowed by a judge to go to a jury trial. He's got 700 billion dollars at the moment. You know, that's his net worth. He now wants another 134 billion from OpenAI because he invested right at the start. And they in OpenAI. So he was one of the co-founders of OpenAI. They had a massive falling out because allegedly, and this is very important words before we get sucked into anything. Allegedly, he wanted to take it private, wanted to bundle it up into Tesla, and Sam Altman and Greg Brockman decided that they did not want that and basically pulled the business away from him. So he then went off on a strop and created XAI. So there's lots of kind of toing and froing as part of the discovery. Over in the States, they kind of release bits of loads of documents and stuff like that have been put in as evidence. And there's Greg Brockman, who is the president of OpenAI, also the chief tech guy, and from his journal, as Musk calls it, and there's basically him just kind of chatting away to himself on some company computer. And this is the CTO, the president, that he thinks that, and it's just his private musings about like, oh, well, you know, we really want to take this private. And this is from very early stages. We've said we want to be a profit, but now, you know, we want to kind of make sure that we lock in some value, blah, blah, blah. So this is just like a soap opera that is just going to keep on going for the rest of this year. Musk is not going to back down. It gives loads of it unsettles OpenAI, gives them a real problem as they kind of try and put together this incredible kind of, you know, building the plane while they're flying it. And yeah, it just feels like it's going to be incredibly distracting for ChatGPT, which I think, you know, again, to our previous story, probably plays very well into Google and Google Gemini's hands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It sucks up resources, doesn't it? And then it's very public, this spat. A bit like the
Yes, it is.
Beckhams, just to get that in there, given you talked about it off camera. But so even on OpenAI's website, there's a snippet of Elon's court filing says OpenAI must essentially, and this is the quote, essentially remain a philanthropic endeavor. And then OpenAI come back with the actual call notes where it said, Elon says, we've got to figure out how we transition from non-profit to something which is essentially a philanthropic endeavor and is B Corp or C Corp or something. And so it's like, that's quite a vital bit of context.
Yeah.
And it's that he's dropped there. And the fact that the trading blows in public makes interesting reading.
Like you say, it is like the Beckham kind of soap opera for sure. And yes, and the headline on that OpenAI blog is "The Truth Elon Left Out." So yes, as you can hear, it is very much getting very, very personal indeed. All right, some more bits and pieces around OpenAI. So OpenAI itself has invested in its CEO, Sam Altman's new brain tech startup. Matt, I know you had some thoughts around this one particularly.
But is that another pun intended on that one? So it's the fact that we already know, and I've talked about previously. We both love gadgets, but the Neuralink really, because that's a Musk one as well, isn't it? In
It is.
terms of the again, trying to be positive and help people who've maybe lost limbs, and you have a chip embedded in your brain so that you can control robotic limbs, etc., directly without having any ancillary mechanisms. And now Sam Altman invested a fair while back in a brain tech startup. Was it called Merge Labs, and
Yeah.
it's now come under the OpenAI. So at a time where we're waiting to see what their Johnny Ive endeavor looks like, he's sort of striding off
Yeah.
into the next one where we'll just have that embedded in our brain all the time. So interesting to watch that one. And we had some other bits and pieces around wearables, which to jump from brain implants to wearables feels like a backward step, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
not only has there been more noise around what, because it's Davos this week, and
Yeah.
there was an announcement that they're looking on track, OpenAI that is, to have their wearable out in 2026. There was also discussion. The most common thought at the moment is that it's going to be some sort of puck related object that sits on the desk, but then this week people have started talking about it being more like a hearing aid, and
Yeah.
not like a
A beam.
1990s hearing aid, something just sitting very discreetly behind it, which that form factor, you walk around town or catch a train and everybody's got their AirPods in, and sort of that idea, like AirPods seem ripe to be
Yeah.
that, doesn't it? It just needs Siri to be revamped really for them to catch up.
Yeah, which, as we discussed last week, Google Gemini is going to be embedded in Siri, so it's actually going to start making sense. And then, as we spoke about as well, Alexa is kind of getting into everything. It now has its own website, Alexa.ai, which behaves in a similar way to ChatGPT, and you can start to put things in memory in and all that sort of stuff. So there is a lot moving, and you're right. The physical manifestation of this AI, this intelligence, there's going to be everywhere. We are going to be not quite drowning in intelligence, but it's going to be like electricity, where basically you are just going to be able to ask stuff and it will give you answers and all that sort of stuff. And you're going to be able to believe much of it, depending on adverts. But yeah, I kind of occasionally just think about, we're probably in our lifetimes, all of us, going to have to make decisions about whether we basically augment ourselves. Right. So actually the technology is going to be there, that we'll be able to plug something into our brains to download our memories, and obviously, as we get older and dementia and all that sort of stuff, and just be able to kind of, so that decision is probably going to be a really important one. And it's just interesting, isn't it? It's like, because the tattoos is a decision, right? All this sort of stuff, these are decisions. And this one's pretty, it would be pretty big. So yeah, with Neuralink coming, so it's continuing to go strong. And there's videos out there on the internet if you want to go and have a look of, people who are disabled and basically being able to kind of, talk and kind of live better lives as a result of having these implants. And yeah, I just think it's going to become far more commonplace. Plastic surgery has become far more commonplace, and from being something that was very, very niche back in the day. So yeah, no, this is going to be a constant, I think, as part of our lives going forwards, as to whether and how far we actually allow this technology to literally enter us, to be inside us.
Well, I think the singularity, isn't it? We already augment ourselves and make those decisions. You've sort of touched on a couple of the sort of maybe superficial ones, but you're also wearing your glasses. I'm wearing my contact lenses, right? We're using technology to ensure that we're advanced. And just returning to the Siri there, there's the Google Apple deal got done last week, and we talk about the wearables, but Apple iOS 27 is going to launch the revamped Siri, and they're actually ditching it from being the Siri that we know and love, to being a built-in chatbot that has access to all of your iOS files, folders, very much
Photos.
like Code Claude talk, as we talked about last week, or Claude Coworker. And the revamped Siri is actually going to be called Campos. So for those of a footballing bent, you might be thinking the 90s or noughties Mexican goalkeeper, who amazingly, actually, he's still playing. And he's the pioneer of the amazingly bright and vivid goalkeeper tops, the short-sleeved ones.
Flamboyant. Yeah,
Siri is gone. Campos is coming, and I don't know if you still shout "Hey Siri" or it'll be "Hey Campos," but they've got a lot of ground to make up. But then we saw Google turn things around in the space of a year, didn't we? So watch this space.
Absolutely. And while we're on Google again, let's dive into their announcement this week that Gemini is introducing personal intelligence. So this feels like kind of the leap into, this all kind of all pervasive intelligence that basically Google knows so much about you from, YouTube and from Gmail and from Chrome. But basically, it securely connects information from all of your apps, including photos and so on. And then you can just ask anything. There's calendar, it's got everything inside it, and you can just basically start to chat about your life, your dreams, your history, and what you did this time last Thursday, and it knows. And I think this is going to be pretty, and it's Google using or leveraging its unique kind of scale and scope, and I think it is super smart. I think with Gemini 3, I don't know if I've mentioned that I really think it's great. I think it's just going to be this is kind of that kind of next frontier being pushed forwards, where essentially it does just become part of our natural, our lives, like electricity. We've got intelligence that's around that knows our stuff, and we're just able to kind of chat to it, like your Jarvis in your Avengers, right?
Exactly that, and in a way, you sort of get this with ChatGPT and the connectors already. If you do the legwork and pay for the subscription to get that, but I don't use Google Suite or Google Workspace, so I've not had a chance to trial this. But you were on Google, or have you been moved over to Microsoft now?
I'm resisting the move, so
So have
we are
you had a
still.
chance to try this personal intelligence? What do you think?
No, so I think it's so I haven't, and that's mainly because I've been sitting in traffic jams on the M1. But yes, I think it might only be available in the States at the moment. So yes, it's a beta test. So yeah, I think States and Canada. But yes, it is coming across. Yeah, so as you say, ChatGPT has the facility to do something similar, but involves a lot of kind of plugging things in, and it just doesn't have that context, right? It just doesn't have that automatic history of everything that you've ever done, not quite ever done, but the stuff that's in its memory. So it's just much more of that some heavy lifting at the start to get it in. But yes, still, as you say, this is not unique with Claude Co-work as well. They're using their skills in coding to branch out into more helpful stuff around the office. So yeah, it's just it is coming fast, and
Yeah.
speaking to agents again out there is some trepidation, about actually, well, what does this mean? Is it going too fast? Are these things becoming so much part of some people's lives that actually those that aren't using it or are perhaps not quite as up with it are going to start missing out. So yeah, I just think, as we always say, when you get some time, go. Literacy is going to be so important. Understanding what it is all about. So yeah, do go. Educate yourselves. Find ways to find out about ChatGPT versus Gemini versus Claude, etc. And yeah, there are lots of things out there, lots of resources to use. But it's increasingly apparent that essentially, if you do not know a decent amount about this sort of stuff, then competitors are going to be starting to go past you, right?
It's an interesting point you make about there. Is it happening too quick? Because as I mentioned earlier, it's Davos this week, and the CEO of Anthropic, who are the people behind Claude, was actually lobbying for everyone to take a bit of a 6-month pause to allow just the world to catch up with what's going on. But obviously, that's fine for the various people who are involved in Davos or NATO or other things. But we are really in an AI arms race as well, aren't we? And so if Russia, China, those other countries surge ahead, it's one of the reasons for America holding back sort of certain chips, isn't it, from China, to just make sure they've got that edge. So I know that's taking a bit of a dark angle on it, but then with the
Yeah,
Neuralink earlier, we sounded like we were in some sort of Black Mirror episode.
dystopia.
Yeah, exactly. I can understand that concern, but also on the flip side, I've been surprised over the last few weeks of people who aren't within their businesses. People are still using sort of that shadow AI, people using their own personal ChatGPT accounts and not even having pilots of large language module for business. So be it Copilot for just a handful of users to trial and become sort of super users or sort of champions of it, or Gemini if you're a Google Suite, and just getting started by saying, okay, we'll give it to these 3 people, let them see, give them some training, and then understand how that is going to help. Because just even in your emails, that context, the interactions you've had with people up till now, and being able to summarize that quickly and back to you is is time saving itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, look, the kind of the takeout is, and I'm sure our audience is pretty switched on when it comes to AI, but yeah, just keep on finding those resources, finding ways to use it within business, because it can save a lot of time. We constantly go back to this idea that, essentially get the machines doing the machine stuff so humans can do the human stuff. We shouldn't be sitting behind our screens typing data in, doing all that sort of stuff. That's us being kidnapped by our data, by our information, because the only place we were able to access it was through a screen or a device. Now it's going to be, you're going to be chatting. It's going to be that thing behind your ear. So yeah, get the machines doing machine stuff, get humans doing human stuff, get back out there, have some fun, because that's what this is going to empower us to do. All right, that is our AI and tech news for this week. Let us now dive into our tool of the week. All right, Matt, this is all about kind of reassuring comfort blanket that is Wikipedia. It is 25 years old, isn't it? Amazing.
It's gone are the days of having the encyclopedia on the bookshelf and consulting that and your world atlas. Wikipedia 25 years ago came into being, and being that encyclopedia that's curated by other users. And this is in the press not just because of the fact that it's 25 years and it's become basically just the go-to for anything, isn't it? And it's one of those things that's not just our generation. It's like, my dad uses it, the various, right down to the kids for their schoolwork are using it. And the bit that's relevant as well to us this week is the fact that they've done a partnership with Amazon Meta Perplexity to actually be paid for their content, which is really good, because that obviously the large language models are becoming that sort of go-to for a lot of this. So the fact that you can now get your Wikipedia content where you search and research is a positive, and shows that hopefully it'll keep going for a little while longer.
Another 25 years at least. Yeah, no, I think it is arguably the most important resource when it comes to kind of large language models as well, right? Because there's so much of particularly the early stuff. If you asked it any of ChatGPT or whatever a question, then it tended to refer to Wikipedia because it kind of trusted it. And then Elon Musk and others, like Elon Musk launched Grokpedia to kind of do the counter to all of that. But yes, Wikipedia still, I think, retains that. We spoke earlier on about trust, retains that trust because it is curated by its users, kind of wisdom of crowds. And it's just an amazing resource. And, so it's great that it is being backed by these businesses that themselves are making quite a lot of money, having just scraped it and repurposed all the data and the information anyway. But it's great that it's being backed. And yeah, as you say, it looks like it's going to be around for a long while to come, which is very, very important. All right, that I think is all we've got time for this week. Thank you so much, A, for bearing with us whilst we slightly recalibrate our weekly schedules, and B, for listening in this week. I hope you have great weekends as they're coming up fast. Yeah, Matt, you up to anything exciting?
More IKEA, I think, and just catching up on things. But next week we're all out and about on the roads. See you same time next week, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, thanks again. Anybody who wants to come along, tour is myporter, mypo.ai/tour, TOUR26. Do come along, say hello, ask all those questions live. And yes, Matt, we will catch up again, I'm sure, before we actually meet up for this next week. But yeah, have yourself a great weekend.
Likewise. Take care, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.